Today I have two Maytags here. They're both same model, and you can see if you push down the lever, it turns over. Got a spark plug wire that I don't have hooked up. But this one here, yeah, it turns, but it turns hard. So what I'm going to do is, I've got my camera over here. Let me move this camera over where you can see it from the other side, and then I'm going to take some pictures inside. So hold on. Okay. And we're going to look inside, and today is about the third day that it's been 100 degrees outside, so I haven't been able to be out here in the garage very much. But what I'm going to do is we're going to look down here and through the bore. And I'm going to try to transfer these photos onto from the camera. So I got to get that started. Bear with me. That's that one. I remember how to switch this over to video. Okay, let me pause a second. I got to do a little experiment. Okay, I've got it on video now, so I'm going to rotate or take this down in and out. And I'm looking at the top of the piston, which you can't see right now, but she's going to see if we can edit that into it. Anyways, I'm going to take the piston down. And we're going to look at the side view. So if you're looking at the video that I'm looking at, you can see the sidewalls, and you can see the ports. I'm looking at the intake ports right there, and you can see the top. That's the top of the head right there. And there's a little bit of scuffing on the piston, the cylinder wall, but that shouldn't be I don't think that's what's holding it up. I'm probably going to have to take it apart. Get around here. What's this? What am I looking at right there? Well, that's top of the piston. Yeah, that's the top of the piston. And you can see the ports all the way around it. I'm going to rotate more again. I want to get around the other side. Well, that's interesting the way this piston is made. So that's got to be the exhaust port right there. Interesting. I have to think about that. Which one's the exhaust port and which one's the intake port? Let's see if I can figure that out. Let's throw on the bottom. If I'm looking at the bottom, rotate this around. be some scuffing right there. I'm trying to look at the bottom. And I might be looking at the wrong side. If that's the bottom, then that's the exhaust port. So the way a 2-cycle works is those ports, when the piston is down, it's exhausting out the bad or the burnt fuel, and it's opening up the other valves on the other side, the intake ports, to bring the new fuel in. It's one of the reasons that they're not efficient, is because they're scavenging fuel going out and fuel coming in at the same time, and so a lot of the good fuel is also going out with the old. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from the other side, and we're going to look at the bottom of the piston. So I'm going to pause this and take this cover off over here. I'm going to take this cover off, and this is the mixer, the fuel mixer, and we're going to see what we got inside there. So let me stay with me a second here. I'm going to look at the bottom of the piston. What I'm looking for is what's stuck. Is it the cylinder? Do I have to take the cylinder head off, or do we have a bearing that's going out? Because this is very few moving parts here, so something's dragging. Something's got a lot of resistance on it. And with this bore scope, it makes it easier to look without tearing things all apart. I might have some scuffing going on the piston. So this is the mixer. This here is the fuel mixer. It's not a carburetor, it's a mixer. It's got a little flat valve. Let me get this off there. I don't know if you can see it. Let me get around here. So this hole right here, inside there's a little flat valve, or it's an intake valve is what it is, but spring loaded. So when there's suction, when the piston's going up, there's suction on the crankcase, and it pulls that valve open, and the fuel comes out through this part, is sucked up into here and goes into the crankcase, and from there it goes to the top of the piston. So that's what we're going to look at next. Looks like I need to make a new gasket. So I'm going to go at my camera again. Turn it back on. Let's do it. We're going to change the location of the camera to what we're looking at. So right now I'm looking inside the crankcase, and what you can see up top, that's the piston and the connecting rod, and then over here, back off a little bit, that is the left side of the crankshaft, and that's where the bearing is at in there. Let's back up a little more. That's the connecting rod, but off to the left is where there's a bushing or bearing over on the other side for the end of the crankshaft, and then on the other side is over here. So I can see there's some rust in here. Let's go up in here. I'm gonna rotate the piston up. Whoops! I gotta watch how I'm gonna get my camera caught in the crankshaft. Get it back out. All right, now we can look at the bottom of the cylinder wall. So I'm going to rotate it again, the camera, so that I'm looking to the side instead of straight in. That is where the bottom of the piston and the skirt. See the connecting rod. Let me rotate the camera a little bit. This camera doesn't have a button where you can rotate it. You have to rotate the whole thing. And what's that? I see a little bit of rust there. I think I'm going to take the cylinder off, and we'll check that, clean that up. Before I do that, so I'm going to squirt some oil in here in these bearings on the side of the crankshaft. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. It looks a little dry. That's the one on the right. We're going to look at the one on the left a little bit better. Going into the crankshaft. Down, not to the left. There we go. So that is, I'm going to try rotating this a little bit. See it moving? That is the bearing over there. So let me put a little bit of oil on those two spots and see if it rotates better. Maybe I'll just use WD-40 because that in it fairly easy. What I'm doing here is I'm going to look at the if this frays up, then we know it's a bearing down here or bushing. Now it's still there. So I'm going to hit the bottom of the piston. So the piston's all the way down right now. I'm going to put it all the way up the top. See, that's pretty far up there. So we now put it at the bottom. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. So I think we're going to take the cylinder off and probably hone that up. Look at the rings, and we'll see. We'll go from there. So what I was talking about here, how this works. So you have the mixer. And here's the fuel tank. Let me shut the camera off, and we'll look at this. Shut that camera off. Okay, so we have the fuel comes in here, coming out of this is the fuel tank down here, and then this is the bottom of the crankcase where the fuel comes in. So it comes out through the mixer, it goes into here. That check valve, the check valve that's in here, when the piston starts downward, it's closing that valve, it's putting pressure, so the fuel can't come back through the carburetor. And what it's going to do is it's going to become pressurized as the fuel comes down. Am I going the right way? Anyways, it comes down and it's pushing the fuel up through the port into the top of the piston. That's what it does. So on the downstroke, it's pushing it up. On the upstroke, it's pulling it in through the carburetor. And then when it gets to the top, we push it in, it compresses, it fires at the top. The piston's at the top, dead center. It fires, and it starts its downward movement. And as it's doing that, the fuel is escaping through the exhaust valve, but the intake valve now is putting new fuel in that was pressurized at the crankcase, and it's pushing out the exhaust along with putting new fuel in, and it comes back up to the top and fires again. That's why it's 2-cycle. Sucks fuel in, compresses and fires, the power stroke and exhaust stroke is the same, and then it starts the intake on the piston starts coming up. It's got a whole new charge of fuel. Takes it back up and compresses it again and fires. It doesn't have valves to open. Now, later on, 2 cycles as they evolved, they did put reed valves in here and a carburetor. So the reed valves did the same thing as the check valve was doing in here, a little flapper valve. And it seals off the carburetor so the fuel don't come back out through the carburetor. It has to go up and not out this way. So that's what that does. So the next thing I'm going to do is, it's even getting better, Jim, the more it sits. It still can't. This should roll over easily, very easily, and it's not. I mean, look at that. That's the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to disassemble this. I wanted to do my troubleshooting here to see which direction I was going to go, and it's looking like we're going to look at this first. That's normally where you would start anyways, but I wanted to look inside and just see how much other damage might be there. I got a feeling that, I mean, right from the beginning, I thought it might be here, but I wanted to make sure I checked these. I did spray some oil in here, so they have lubrication there. This should be turning freely right now. So that's where I'm at right now. I hope we can get these videos from this other camera onto the video so you can see what goes on inside. Another neat thing about what this does is it scavenges excess fuel and dumps it back into the tank. And that's kind of interesting because, well, I guess it would be shutting it off. It's going back through this scavenger here, and it drops down into this area. It can't get back down into the bottom, but it can be reused. The excess fuel can be reused in the next charge. Yeah, I think we had this thing running at the show, and after it sits a while, it gets stiff, and that's what I'm going to try to fix. So there it is, 2 Maytags. I believe these are Model 92s. Yeah. Just a quick look here. If there's a number right here on the flywheel, and if somebody hasn't changed the flywheel, this number corresponds to the serial number. It's 521781. And if you go onto Flywheel Supply website, you can look up these numbers. And so I'm going to look up 521. So the number is 520540, was November 30th, 1933, and the 523885 was December 31st, 1933. So sometime in November, this motor was made in 1933. And that's the same way I looked up this one over here. There's a number on the flywheel right there. This is a 618, and I said, what year was this one? 1935. And if I look on here, 618, that's right. It's between March and April of 1935 this one was made. That's if somebody hasn't changed the flywheel. I don't know if there's any other stampings on here that would designate the flywheel or the serial number, but I may find that when I get digging through these things. But that's how you find it. Here's what the list looks like. You see all the numbers, and they made them all the way up through 1937, and then they started twin cylinders. A lot of motors. Last multi-motor, September 1952. They made Maytag engines. I think that's where electricity came along, and it was portable wash machines are a little bit more portable, where you can move them indoors, because you can't run these indoors. They stink up the house. All right, so we can probably add that into somewhere in the other video. Thank you. Not sure this one. I haven't looked up the dates on it yet, but it may be newer, maybe older. Everything looks the same. This is the same. The fuel tank on this one is smaller. I don't know if you noticed that, but this tank goes way up to here. Let me get the length of it. Somebody might want to know that. I haven't ever taken one of these apart before, so it's going to be the first one I've done. That's 8 inches. And this fuel tank over here is 10 inches. About 10. So it's got a bigger fuel tank on the bottom. And I think you can see that here. You'll be picking that up on the camera. But this has got another piece sticking out the back. Yeah, that would be different. So actually, this probably come out onto that if I needed to. But we're gonna take this and fix it. We'll see what we can do. So that's it for today. It's been a hot week. Like I said, this is the 3rd day that it's been 100 degrees, and haven't been able to be out here very much. I got a terrible heat rash from being out in heat, and that's not nice. It doesn't feel good. But we'll get this apart and see if we can't get this thing so it turns better, and then get it running again. And that'll be the video for this week. We'll see if it works. Last week we had problems with the sound. I hope this is like a test run for that, and I hope it works out well. So thank you for watching, and we'll pick you up next week.